Another 30 days has passed, so that means it's time once again to recount what I've been up to the past month. If this is your first time here, the videos in this series aren't heavy on editing, so just sit back and relax and put this in the background while you do something else, because it's time to recount what I've been up to in November 2021. Let's start with the games this time, the first being Forza Horizon 5. Not only the first Forza game I've ever played, but one of the first non-kart racing games I played in probably close to 15 years. The main reason I played this game was because it was free on Xbox Game Pass, and I figured, why not give it a try with all the hype I've been seeing about it. And it actually really impressed me to the point I think I'm a big fan of it. The opening to the game really sets the tone since you're immediately dropped out of a plane in a car and it's just go, go, go from there. I love the amount of customization there is for your cars, and it's easy to apply custom decals yourself or use ones that other players have already made. Probably the biggest draw is that it's all multiplayer too, and meeting up with a big crew of friends to do races and show off our cars was some of the most fun I've had in a while. It's gotten to the point I've even contemplated getting a steering wheel controller just for Forza 5, which should say a lot. The next game I played was Shin Tensei 5, one of my most anticipated games of the last decade. I'm still working on my in-depth review of it, so I won't give away too much here. But to keep it simple, I was massively disappointed. The game is fine in the gameplay department and the music is stellar, but when it comes to the story, characters, moral choices, and themes that give SMT its identity and makes it stand out among its contemporaries, it falls woefully short. To the point it soured my playthrough, and I kept going for the gameplay alone up until I saw the credits. As a massive fan of the series, it pains me to have to say all that, but it's the truth. Like I said, if you want more of my full thoughts, look out for my review coming sometime this December. I watched a few things in November, more so than I normally do, the biggest being the Netflix show You. I have a couple friends that have hyped this show up to the stratosphere for me, and so I finally gave it a try. And after seeing most of it, it's okay. The main character Joe is a stalker / murderer who easily falls in love with women and projects his delusions onto them about why they're the perfect woman for him. Unsurprisingly, it ends in disaster every time, and the cycle continues. Joe himself is kinda a poor man's Dexter. He has the whole inner monologue thing Dexter was known for, and as I said, he's a murderer and all-around creep. Though the big difference between the two is that Dexter is very aware of what he is and goes after other serial killers and criminals that have evaded the law to satiate his homicidal urges. Whereas Joe is completely oblivious to the monster he is and sees himself as this amazing catch, despite the fact he ruins the lives of these women he meets. He's really unlikable, albeit funny at times with just how out of touch with reality he is, like a scene where he's fantasizing about this girl and we the viewers see his delusions, only for the camera to cut to him being right outside her house at night, pleasuring himself in a bush while he watches her through the window. Overall, I didn't dislike the show, but I don't view it in any high regard. Next Sandwatch was American Horror Story Double Feature, the newest season of the long-running show with an interesting premise that I have to be upfront about. I didn't see enough to get the full gist of. What I mean is that the season is split into two, each apparently two different stories that work together to tell one full narrative. But I didn't make it to the second part sadly, so all I have to judge it by so far are the few episodes of part 1 that I saw. But I did enjoy what I did get to experience with the show, and that is of an almost shockingly typical vampire tale. This writer moves his family into this remote small town to get inspiration for his novels, and from the get-go you can tell something is off with the city. Not many people are around, creepy dudes being spotted acting strange in the streets, a random woman yells at the main character to get out of town while he can. Typical scary movie stuff, right? Well, it turns out most of the town's inhabitants are vampires or creatures that are supposed to be them, since they're not called vampires by name. But one interesting thing that I've never seen before in fiction is that the source of the vampires in this are a pill. There's these pills you take that increase the functionality of your brain, letting you use the parts of your brain that normally lie dormant, enhancing your creativity and all that for a time. But the side effect is that you crave blood and need to sustain the positive effects of the pill. I've seen plenty of vampire stuff, but never one where vampirism is caused by a pill, of all things. Despite the other predictable aspects of the show, it's good, and I can't wait to see how the other story ties into part 1. Doubt it'll end up being one of my favorite seasons of American Horror Story, but I'm looking forward to seeing how it all ends and comes together. The final thing I watched was AEW's Full Gear pay-per-view, and as usual, it was a great show. But what I want to focus on specifically is the 2-year story of Hangman Adam Page and why it's been my favorite, most relatable story in wrestling in quite a while. AEW as a company is only 2 years old. And at the first ever show, Hangman Page earned himself a chance to be crowned the first ever AEW World Champion. In the opposite corner in his way was wrestling legend Chris Jericho. Chris Jericho is a household name in the wrestling business, while at the time, Hangman Adam Page, to put it perfectly blunt, was a nobody. And while he put up a valiant effort, he ultimately lost to Master Chris Jericho, with Chris Jericho earning the right to call himself the first ever world champion in AEW history, and Hangman simply being the guy who couldn't rise to the occasion. The next year or so saw Hangman reach success in other areas like being one half of the tag team champions with partner Kenny Omega, but you could tell that this initial loss and failure to become world champion had a lingering effect. He distanced himself from his friends, started drinking frequently, and eventually cost Kenny and himself the tag titles, fragmenting the relationship in the process. Further and further, Hangman sunk into a dark place. All the friends he distanced himself from rose to the top of the company, his former partner Kenny even attaining the world title that Hangman himself could not. And when Hangman was at his lowest, he by chance became acquainted with a group of misfits known as the Dark Order, who little by little helped Hangman come out of that dark place and find his confidence again. To the point where 2 years later, after his initial failure to obtain the world title, Hangman entered the Full Gear pay-per-view and faced off one-on-one with his former friend and partner Kenny Omega, and won, walking away with the AEW world title while being held high by his newfound friends and family in the Dark Order. It was the epitome of a feel-good moment that was 2 years in the making. And what I love most about this story is that it can be inspiring and relatable to anyone in any facet of life. Not being good enough to achieve a goal and falling into a dark place as a result, only to eventually find strength alongside people that genuinely care for you and rise to the occasion to finally achieve what you couldn't do on your own before. It's a story ultimately about never giving up and believing in yourself, and I'm glad I was there from day one to see it all play out for Hangman Adam Page. I want to end this video with talking about how my Thanksgiving weekend went, and for the first time in a long time, I can genuinely say it was great. Not only was I off of work for that Thursday and Friday, I got paid for both days, and even though I've only been working this job for about 2 months, I got a big raise already in recognition for all my hard work. Even now, I feel genuinely proud of myself, and I'm glad to finally be able to say that I have a job I love. And for the first time ever, I kind of splurged on myself for Black Friday. I normally don't, but this year I felt like maybe I earned it. I got myself a couple games, Soccer Wars on PS4 and Star Ocean 5. I bought some G Fuel to try for the first time since my friends have been hyping it up to me, and I bought my first ever wrestling championship belt replica, the IWGP United States title belt that was first worn by my favorite wrestler, Kenny Omega. But I can't talk about Thanksgiving weekend without talking about Thanksgiving itself, and for the first time in a long time, I spent it with family. I was a bit anxious since it's been a long time since I've gone out of my way to hang out with family, me not having the best relationship with them, but I'm glad I decided to since it was a good time, plenty of laughs, delicious foods, and it was nice to get out of the house for a bit. It was a great end to an overall great month for me, and I'm hoping December is just as good, not only for me, but all of you as well.